Hey, what's up guys? My name is Cherno. Welcome to episode 67 of Game Programming. So last time we took a look at basically, creating our mouse object and being able to detect mouse position. So we, as you can see, this white square is following our mouse pointer, and also which button we press and stuff like that, which was freaking awesome. So today we're going to expand on that because, again, the reason for even adding the mouse, apart from, I guess, clicking on menus in the future and inventory and everything, is because we're basically, since we're basically making Realm of the Mad God, we want to be able to send a projectile or shoot in the direction of where our mouse is. So if we click over here, we want a projectile to fly like this, right? If we click over here, we want it to fly like that, etc. Okay? So basically today we're going to start making that projectile and being able to shoot things in various directions, which should be a lot of fun. So get excited. Okay, so let's close everything. I just like being organized and I don't like clutter, so close all. And we'll only do stuff that we need. And in fact, I'm going to show you guys, and I literally just thought of this on the spot, but it's probably a good idea because this task list is sitting here. I'm going to show you guys how to basically manage, I guess, your tasks a bit better in Eclipse. So this is Eclipse only. But basically, because what we want to do right now is create shooting, it's really easy to kind of get sidetracked and not really focus and maybe forget our goals in the beginning. And there's nothing worse than spending like a few hours making something and then going back and being like, oh, hang on a minute, I didn't make it to the specification that I wanted to, and it's not going to work this way that I've made it now because I forgot of one little thing. So now I have to go back and redo the entire thing from scratch. Yeah, that's not good. So let's make a new task. So over here in Eclipse, we've got this thing called a task list. Very, very useful. So if you don't see it for some reason or you've closed it, if you go to Windows, Show View, Task List, all right? It's right over here. And if it's still not here for some weird reason, hit Other and just type in like Task List and it'll be right here, okay? Hit Cancel. Okay, so let's add a new task. So over here in Task List, we've got this new task button, okay? We can add that. So if you've actually got a repository, you can connect it up to your like GitHub or whatever. I'm not going to do that, so just local. So in other words, you don't need to set anything up, just hit local. It should be local by default, and hit finish. That's it. Okay, and it comes up with this new task thing, which is awesome, and there's attributes thing so that you can categorize and everything. But we'll do that in a minute. Okay, so this is awesome, and we've also got this context thing, which I'll show you guys in a minute. That's the powerful thing here. So we want to make a new task, right? And let's just call it player shooting. Okay, you can call it whatever you want, obviously. And status obviously is incomplete. And we can actually see all these other statistics, and we can see like how long it takes us to do this. This is really, really useful if you're working in teams, or really by yourself. But what I mean is it's even more useful if you're working in teams. But anyway, so basically our goals for this is to make the player shoot in the direction of the mouse, right? And we want to, I guess, shoot a projectile. Okay, that's sort of what we want to do. As if that is so correctly spelled. Unless no, that is pretty sure that's how you spell projectile. I'm gonna have to Google that though. Yep, that is how you spell projectile. Okay, nice one, Eclipse. But okay, we can also add things like categories. So you can see here we've got an uncategorized one. We can actually add a new category here, and we can call it like player gameplay, for example. Right? And then we can actually pop this. We'll actually have to save it and then close it and then open it again. But we can now pop this into player gameplay, right? And if we say that, you can see that it's in player gameplay now, so that we can group all of our things. But what I want to show you guys and what I really like using here is this context thing. Context is awesome because what you can actually do here is you can actually add classes that you will use for this. Okay, so basically, you can think, what do we need to make the player, able to shoot? Well, we need the player class, so let's just add this in. Context in Eclipse, like, I'm not actually sure of the correct way to do it, to be quite honest, but this is the way that I sort of do it. If you hit up player shooting, you can see that we've got 0 elements at the moment in our context. What we can do, though, is we can hit this activate button. I can actually click it up here, and you can see that we've now got kind of an empty context, right? So in other words, what context does is it only shows us the classes that are actually part of this task. So if we unclick here, we can actually go down to, let's just say player, which is here, right? And I believe if you go to context and show all of it, no, that's not it. Okay, if you hit the focus on active task thing, this is really, I don't even know what the right way to do this is. You can see that we actually get elements here that appear, but what we can do is we can click on player over here, and we can actually, yeah, it automatically gets added. So again, this is kind of flawed, but you can see that if we do this now, we've only got player here. So we can add the classes that we think will be necessary. So I think mob might be as well, just because we want other players to shoot in the future as well. And let's see, let's add, well, graphics is, screen is our render class, right? So that will be definitely needed because we actually need to render the thing. And I think the other thing we'll need for shooting is probably, we won't need input. I think that's it, actually. We can add more if we need to, but yeah. So let's only show the context now. So this is really cool because what we can do is, let's just say we're working on something else here. We've got our game class open, you know, it's all good. Let's actually get rid of that white square and all that stuff. So let's just comment that out for now, so that when we actually launch our game, we won't get that white square thing. Okay, sweet, awesome. So now if we actually hit this little activate button here, then you can see that everything else hides except for the things that we need, so we can close this now. So only mob, player, and screen is actually visible to us. So it makes it really like kind of clean and organized, and just so that we don't get distracted with other things. These are really the only classes that we should have to change. Obviously we'll need to make more classes as well, but these are the ones that we can change basically without that should affect shooting, so nothing else should be changed. So that's awesome. So let's do that now. Okay, that was like a mini introduction because I want you guys to sort of be aware of how it should be done, I guess, in a formal way. So over here in player, the thing that we really want to do here is we want to shoot if something happens, right? So if we go into mob, I'm just thinking about how I'm going to do this. What we want to do basically is in in render, sorry, in update, we want to basically say that if we click, right, then initiate that little shooting thing. So basically what we need to say is, what we can say is if shoot, or rather if mouse dot, what is it, get button, right, equals 1, which is the left mouse button, as you saw from last week's video, or yesterday's video actually. Whenever we clicked, the mouse button equals 1 thing would pop up, or whatever. So if mouse button equals 1, then we want to shoot, right? We want to shoot a projectile. Now, we want to shoot it at specific coordinates, and we kind of want to shoot it at this point in time, probably where the mouse is, right? We want to shoot it in the direction of where the mouse is. So we need a few little variables here, or a few little parameters. What we really want here is the x and y of where the projectile originates from. So that will be the player x and player y. And again, we'll have to offset it to make it from the center, but we'll do that later. That's hypothetical. We also want the direction. So the direction we will work out in a minute. But that's basically what we need, right? So actually, we've already got the direction. That's the player direction, though. So let's make that method now. But let's not make it in the player class. Let's make it in the mob class, right? Because other mobs are going to be able to shoot as well, not just the player. So pub protected void shoot. And again, that'll take all of our 3 parameters, which is in x, in y, and probably either a float or a double. We should probably use a double though for direction. So let's come back here into our player class. We don't need a screen for now. So what we want to do now is basically figure out, well, we've got x and y already done, right? So the only thing we really need to figure out is the direction. And what I might do here is, let's come back into update just to clean this up because there's a bunch of stuff here. Shooting thing. I don't know what to call it. Update shooting. Right? We'll just make the quick method to update shooting just because there's a bunch of stuff that's going to be here and I just want to organize it a bit better, but this will basically run a real loop. So if mouse button equals 1, right, we want to shoot from these 2 points into this direction. Okay. Now we already got x and y, right? That's just the player location. We've got that. That's awesome. But what we don't have right now is the direction. And we need to work that out based on where the mouse is, right? So this will involve some maths. Obviously, you should have seen that coming. Let's think about it logically though, because that's awesome. So we need to work out if I just place my mouse pointer here. Okay, I have not done this in ages, and I'm really excited to do it again. Freaking paint.net. All right. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, cool. So if the player is right over here, yeah, I should get a graphics tablet or something. If the player is right over here, and this is the player because it's got a P there, and our mouse pointer, this is a mouse pointer by the way, surprisingly good looking, is over here, right? We want to shoot in this direction, correct? Of course. So what do we know? What can we work out? We've got 2 coordinates here, right? X and Y. And we've got 2 coordinates of the actual player, right? X and Y. This looks like crap, but whatever. I might get a tablet, honestly. Right, we've got these 2 points. So now what we can do is we basically just need to figure out this angle. And we've got this point, right? Because we can actually get this line by subtracting this y coordinate from this y coordinate. And we can get this line by subtracting this x coordinate from this x coordinate, right? So we've got these 2, right? And what we need to do is figure out the angle here. That's theta. Okay? And we can do that, obviously, since we've got the opposite side and the adjacent side. We can use tan. We can use the inverse tan minus 1, to work out opposite over, oops, not hypotenuse, opposite over adjacent, right? And we know that this, again, is y2, I'll just call that y2 minus y1, and this is x2 minus x1. So that's what A equals, and that's what O equals. Okay? So now we can just plug this into this equation, and it'll be awesome. Now, a few things you need to know about this, right? There are a few functions that we can use, right? So tan minus 1 is obviously the same as arctan, or as this is ridiculous, isn't it? Or as it's called, in Java, atan. But there is actually an atan function, and you might notice there's also an atan2 function. Now, what's the difference? Well, the awesome thing about 2, which is the one we'll be using, is that there's no way we can possibly divide by 0. Because if we try and divide by 0, it's obviously going to crash our program. It's going to crash our game, because we cannot divide by 0. Now, tan2 basically just says, if the thing we're trying to divide by is 0, then just return, like, whatever. Don't crash the game. So, in other words, it actually handles that. Just atan does not handle it, okay? So that's the basic maths of how we're going to do this. I was going to save this stuff for the in-depth series, but anyway. This is just so you get a basic, I guess, viewing angle of how it roughly works, okay? So we're going to use this maths now to figure out the angle that we need. So if you look at it this way, what we need right now is we just need to plug in 2 things into tan2, right? Opposite and adjacent sides. So A equals that, which is just that the mouse x coordinate minus the player's x coordinate, and opposite equals the mouse's y coordinate minus the player's y coordinate. Okay, so let's work at those things out right now. So I'll just make dx that one. So it's gonna be mouse.getX minus, and we should really only do this if the mouse button is pressed, because there's no point to do it if it's not, minus player x, which is just x, right? One thing we do have to do though is make this absolute, because obviously if we shoot this way, then the mouse's thing minus this is going to be a negative number, so we can just flip it and make it positive basically. Again, an ABS will just make sure that if it's less than 0, it'll just make it, it'll basically multiply by -1 if it's negative. Okay, so double dy equals the same thing, mouse.abs, mouse.getY minus y. Okay, so those are our 2 things figured out. Now we just need to plug them in, which is pretty simple. Now, one thing you might not know is that you actually have to put in the y first, okay? So, So double dir, which is the direction, equals math.atan2, okay? So it probably just tells you that it won't return. But yeah, you can see that over here in atan2, we need to return, we need yx, right? Whereas here, well, we just need a, but that's just the angle already. But in atan2, we need the y. Oh yeah, that's the other thing that atan2 does, by the way. It's really useful for gaming because it actually separates a into two different variables. But y first and then x, right? So math.atan2 dy dx, well, that's already there for us. Brilliant. And then we can send this direction into this method and it will hopefully, produce a good result. So that is the basic maths of actually determining the angle in which we need to fire the projectile, and then obviously we'll have to use vectors to actually animate the projectile flying into that angle. But let's just check out what this looks like. So over here in shoot, let's just print out, the angle, because we don't really care about x and y. That's obvious, but the angle is the thing that we did. So you can see here that as I move the mouse around, and I'm clicking, obviously if you click and drag, it's not going to do anything. But if I click, it's getting all these different awesome things. And I just realized what an idiot I am. We don't need ABS here, because I don't know why I was thinking we needed that. Let's get rid of ABS. Okay, cool. So now we get negative and positive angles, which is good. So yeah, that is basically how it's going to work. Yeah, enjoy. Okay, so I'm just worried about why that's not positive. Should it be? I don't know. Anyway, point is, I guess we'll see when we actually 1.6, 1.1. No, I guess that works. Maybe not. Anyway, I'm sure we'll work it out when we actually put it into play. And I am pretty sure that's right. Anyway. Oh, yeah, no, of course. Good thing I realized. We don't need X here. This is player X. We don't need that because player X is. We need the center. We need the actual player's position on our screen, which never changes, right? He's always in the middle of the screen because remember we're getting the mouse pointer's direction on the screen, not on the map, right? So it'd be useless getting the player's direction location on the map. We want to actually get the player's location on our screen, which is pretty much in the center, right? So let's just pretend it is exactly in the center because it pretty much is. Our screen width, I believe, is 300 and 168, okay? 300 and 168, remember that. So minus 300 divided by 168. Oh, sorry, divided by 2. And this is 168 divided by 2. Alright, so now if we do this thing, what we should get is, awesome. So now we get the actual angle where this seems to be 0. Okay. 0.4, 0.3, 0.1, yep, 0. And that should never change. Okay, sweet. So there we go. That's how we actually get the angle. So remember, it is the mouse location on the screen minus the center. Because when I drew this thing here, the player, you have to, basically, I hope you guys realized my mistake there. We want to be able to actually get the player's location on our screen, right? Which is always in the center since the camera follows him. And it won't actually always be in the center because sometimes the player might be offset for various reasons. And we'll talk about that in an upcoming video. But yeah, basically, you need to make sure that you're getting it on the actual screen since the mouse pointer, the mouse pointer coordinate that we're getting is just on the window, not on the map. So obviously we need to get the player's location in our window, not on the map. So yeah, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button. And next time I see you guys, we'll probably talk about actually creating that projectile and animating it. So yeah, till then, goodbye.